Welcome a third time. This is the BTonez podcast, episode 9, with our title being today, The Impossible. And what we have today are testimonies, strong testimonies for the events that just transpired this past week. I have guests in the studio with me. They're going to introduce themselves, give a little bit of their testimony and their perspective on the recent events that just occurred. But the bottom line is, every time you come to my channel, at the very least, you're going to get a very good word. So I hope that you're inspired. I hope that you're encouraged by this word, and just sit back. You might want to grab some popcorn or your favorite beverage, because what you are about to hear is not common. But we still do serve a God who works in the impossible business. When man is pushed to his extremity, that's God's beginning point. And that's what you're going to hear today. So I'm going to hand the microphone off to my good buddy, Darien Claxton. He's my prayer partner. He's been praying with me for the past 7 years. We've gone through a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and we definitely have a lot of news on the highs that happened last week. So Darien, I'm glad you're in the house, my brother. Talk a little bit about why we're here and the events that happened last week, just as you see fit. We can start going through the details from the top.
My name is Darien Claxton. I'm the owner and president of Clax Track Solutions, digital marketing agency. And all of us are kingdom entrepreneurs. All of us are ministers with kingdom assignments. I met both these brothers decades ago. Me and Brad, as he mentioned, we prayed together for several years. Didn't matter where we were. I did a ton of traveling for my business. So I'd be in South Africa, he'd be in Colombia, I'd be in Amsterdam, he'd be in San Diego, I'd be in Alaska. Didn't matter. We found a way to connect. Last summer, I had the pleasure of going to Myron Golden's Offer Mastery Line. I met him virtually several years prior. I had him on my podcast. It was a life-changing experience. And being in that live space and meeting for the first time, connecting with the kingdom entrepreneurs, it was such a game changer for me, for my business, for my faith. And it was evident to the people in my sphere of influence, including Brad, how much of a transformational experience this was. So it was a few months prior, probably in the middle of March, that it was announced that this experience was coming. Now, we knew he was going to do an event, but the actual date came around then. And then when I attended his Make More Offers Challenge for probably the 16th time in April, he said this would be his last event. And It's interesting that when we went there, and we'll talk about how we got there, because that's the meat of what we're discussing, is the miracles that open the doors for us to get there. A lot of people said that was the catalyst for them. Myself, for example, I had 3 kids performing at the Kennedy Center that same week. And so I kind of had that week marked. Like I said, whatever's happening, I'm going to be locked in for then. And once I realized what the date was, to my wife about it, and she's seen the transformation. She's like, go. But Brad and I, we had purpose. We had committed. We had prophesied over each other. We had prayed about this opportunity because there was going to be a huge financial investment on top of the time. And we said, come with me. Brad, he went ahead and blocked that week out for work in faith. We're talking about thousands of dollars once you consider the ticket price, you consider the transportation, you consider the hotel. Like feasibly, we're like, how is this going to happen? But we made the declaration, we made an intention that we were going to be there. Danny, I don't remember, I don't know if it was the March one we were all in the same one together. I remember seeing Danny at the last one. That was the first time that I realized that Danny was in Myron space. So seeing him, I was like, yo, what's up? Like finally seeing somebody that I knew prior to being in that space. When I saw Danny at Myron Edmonds conference, he was already like, I don't think I'll be able to make it. So I had in my mind, I wasn't expecting to see you because for whatever reason, that wasn't going to happen. But because we were in this environment of intention, of kingdom entrepreneurship, kingdom ministry, we were like, come what may, we're going to find our way out there. And the story is the meat of this whole equation.
Yeah, man. I want to throw in a couple details with Darien, man. Like he said, we touched and agreed a long time ago about this conference, setting the time apart way back then in faith, as he said, with the huge financial investment that it was going to take going down there. And interesting thing about Danny and I reconnected just a couple months ago, not only online, but in person. I've been hosting the men's meetups, as you guys have heard here on this channel before. And he attended one of these men's meetups. He was actually the first person to arrive at one of them. We talked a bit about old times, what we're doing currently, and I could tell that his mindset and his motivation and the things he was currently doing was in kind of like in lockstep with what Darien and I were going through. Before I get into my details, because I'm getting excited already, I want to hand the microphone over to Danny just to give a little bit of, the days leading up to the actual trip to get down there. So Danny, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it to you, brother.
Greatly appreciate the opportunity. And, Brad, you and I, we go way back, as we were talking, like your grandfather is who knocked on the door of my grandfather. It's just insane.
Yeah.
We go way back. Well, let's just say that there was a member of my family that, Darien had interest in. So I wasn't allowed to like him. And when I saw Darien last year, it was like, yo, this brother he's on it. Interestingly enough, when Darien, you asked me, you were like, yo, are you going to be at Myron's event? And there were 2 Myron events. I texted you, a lot going on. I was like, I'll be at Myron's, because we have Myron Evans and then we have Myron Golden. Brad comes, he reaches out to me a week ago. He's like, yo, are you going? I was like, yo, bro, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. It's kind of tight financially. I had some accounts receivable that I've been waiting to come in. And Brad was like, yo, I'm just going to touch and agree with you. I'm like, oh, man. And so I'm like, all right. My other business partner, David, he calls me up. He's like, yo, I'm doing a Danny. And what doing a Danny is taking a faith move, because I've gone to a couple of these events now where I didn't even have the resources to fully get there. But I would just take the leap in faith. And every single time God came through. So I was set on not doing that this time, because I was trying to be responsible. You know what I'm saying? Trying to do the right thing. But Brad calls me like the day before. And he's like, oh, how are you getting there? I'm like, well, I'm probably going to be driving, because I had the accommodation situated. I hadn't bought my ticket yet. I didn't even have the funds in my account to buy the ticket, because I had done work that I hadn't got paid for several clients. And so I'm like, all right, bet. So Brad touched and agreed. I was like, all right, I'm probably gonna be leaving early in the morning. He's like, yo, I wanna be down. I was like, all right, bro, let's go. So Brad, you and I, we get in the car with my son, we're headed south. And I look at you, I'm like, yo, bro, you got anything? I don't even have enough to get there. Like, real talk. We have packed up and I don't even have enough to get there. And I'm like, Brad, what you got? He was like, yo, bro, I'm gonna let you take it there from there, Brad. Come on, talk to me.
When we talked about this, it was like past midnight on Saturday night. It was like early Sunday morning. We had talked about this, and the touch and agree thing is on point. I said I touched and agreed with Darien, my cousin Eric, who lives down there, and now I'm touching and agreeing with you. And there were so many doubts and fears that came into play that I had to actively think against and pray against in order to exercise my faith. We talk about faith a lot of times, but until we're put into a situation when there is nothing in reality dictating that what we are desiring will be achieved, then that's when faith must take hold. That's when all the prayers that you lift up must be recognized and realized. And you have to fully believe, because either God's word lies or it does not lie. God cannot lie, because if he does, everything falls apart. So I put my faith and my trust in him, and he gave me the inclination. I prayed to the Father. I was like, if Danny drives down there, if he allows me to be in the passenger seat, I'm going to go. I do not have enough resources, because similar to Danny, some financial things had not come through just yet. But I was like, I'm just going to jump out there and put this in God's hands. Because like I said, I had taken the entire week off of work. And when I did that, I was like, either I'm going to be sitting at home not doing nothing, or I'm going to make a faith move, do a Danny. So it came to Monday morning, and we're riding down there. We're looking at each other like, what's about to happen? I didn't even have enough money to help this brother with gasoline heading down there. First thing Danny did is he started playing inspirational music. He started playing all this gospel music about God doing the impossible, about having faith. And that motivated us and brought our spirits to a point to where we got to communicate. I started calling a couple of good friends and family to see if they were willing to be able to help me out in this situation. Danny was making some phone calls. And as we progressed down this 13-hour trip down to Florida, things started materializing, things started coming into play, and we were able to raise enough money for the event before we got to the destination. And it was miraculous. Like, we got the evidence along the way. We documented at the exact moments when the miracles started to occur. Darien has a room booked, and there was a little bit of difficulty in his acquiring of that room. I'm gonna let him talk about that portion, but it's almost like there were dominoes set up. So when one person got blessed, then the next person got blessed. And we were all like in different situations in different areas. But Darien, talk a little bit about, what happened when you got to the hotel and the situation that was going on.
Yeah, well, let me back up to the Sunday. So remember, by this point, I have not heard a testimony from Brad. about him going down there. We pray together twice a week, usually Tuesday and Thursday. I hadn't heard anything, and so in my mind, I start to get like really oppressed. Right now, I have my ticket and I have my flight. I don't have my hotel, but I have my ticket and my flight, and so I'm feeling like, wait a minute, we touched and agreed about it. Am I gonna have to make excuses for why God didn't come through? Well, maybe he meant this, or well, maybe there still was gonna be a blessing for him watching them. I was like, and so I'm starting to feel it in a major way. I'm talking about like depression, all of these feelings come down. And in that moment, I see Brad calling me. And I don't want to answer the phone because I feel like I'm going to hear an excuse. I was like, yeah, man, I couldn't make it, but like, we'll see what God's doing. And I'm like, I'm just pleading with him because I'm like, this is not how you operate. This is not what testimonies are made of. It's not that just we've touched and agreed. I told my wife, I told a lot of people that we collectively were going down. And so I'm like, I'm like Hezekiah when Sennacherib was attacking. Rabshakeh is talking trash and he has it out in a letter. And Hezekiah lays it out. He's like, look what they talking about you. Look what they're saying about you, right? And this is what I'm doing. So Brad calls me and I don't want to answer. God's like, answer the phone. So I answer it. And that's when you tell me, hey, me and Danny going to go down there. We're going to go out in faith. I don't think you understand how much of an encouragement that was to me. I was out front. I was walking outside on my lawn out front. And I had tears in my eyes here, and I was so encouraged. So we prayed again, but it was a different type of prayer. I was basically praying that you would not be discouraged because God didn't come through. I didn't frame it like that, but that was in my mind. I was like, I know he's gonna be really discouraged or whatever. And our prayer shifted when I heard that. I was like, God, now you've shown, you gotta honor that faith. And I know that you will. And so I get down there and I asked the people, I called when I was at Tampa, because I was supposed to have a guy's gonna be my podcast later today, GW Chu. He's gonna split the room with me. And in my mind, back up, if I can't put the stuff on the card, then he could do it, right? He could do it with his card or whatever. He's already giving me half of the money, whatever. And I didn't have enough money to cover it, but I called the hotel in advance to see what the hold would be. And I don't know what's wrong with me. They told me $150 a night, right? $450. And so I'm thinking, oh, that's cool. That's about what I have, so no problem. It didn't dawn on me that's the hold on top of the actual fee for the hotel, which is over $1,000. So I don't know. I mean, I've traveled a zillion times. I should know better. That was a rookie mistake. So I go there, talking to the hotel person. You know what I mean? She's filling me in with all these things, giving me all the places around town to be eaten. And she swipes my card and it's like, oh, this nigga's going through. I'm like, huh? What's going on? $450. And then she's like, well, no, it's going to be $1,150 plus a $450. I'm just like, so I'm like, just like Danny, I got some AR, I got stuff that people told me earlier that day. That's the other reason why I wasn't panicking about that. I was putting my faith in man. I was like, I can go there with that kind of faith and know that these people are going to pay on time, have more than enough. I'm sitting there, I'm texting. So I have to get out of line, right? Because the person who said they were going to pay, it was going to be imminent. Yeah, I got you covered. Spoiler alert, he didn't pay until the next day. Right? So I'm sitting here for 2 hours, right? And I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, Lord, Brad's coming in faith. He's going to be most likely staying in my spot. I've been traveling till 6 o'clock in the morning. I've been up since 3 in the morning. I'm exhausted. So I'm over by the desk, just on my computer. You know what I did? I was tempted to like hit up people that owe money or whatever have you. I was obedient. And what I was obedient about, the devotional book I wrote on spiritual warfare, I translated it into Spanish. And I had not finished the marketing video for it. I hadn't finished a lot of things for it. And God told me to launch it before I left. So instead of thinking about my problem, instead of thinking about what was going to happen, I just sat and I finished my email sequence. I finished editing the video. I put it out there. It was done. As soon as that happened, this is probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, I see a Stripe notification. It was just the amount that I needed. Matter of fact, I was short by like $20. And then, you know where the $20 came from? I posted that video. It was me in Spanish talking about the video. Someone had been asking for a Spanish copy of the book. She bought, it was $20. So basically I was probably off by like 50 cents in terms of clearing that amount. So wow. I go upstairs, drag my tire behind up there and let Brad let you know, hey, we're good. So that's what I went through, waiting for you to come through.
One thing I would definitely have to point out, and you caught it, but this is something key that I believe everyone needs to hear. When we put our faith in God and then in the back of our minds we have a plan B, that's not faith. God has to be the bottom line with no other option. So when you're making plans and you're asking God for your requests, whatever it is, your desires, and you're asking in the name that you're supposed to be asking in and everything like that, but then in the back of your mind, okay, you're working out what will happen if this does not come through, that's not faith. You have to have that unequivocal belief that your trust in your faith is solely in your Creator, and that is it, no matter what. And that's the situation Darien found himself in. So Danny and I pull up at like a little bit after 2:00 in the morning. And there's one element that I definitely want to bring out. One other thing that God told me to do that I thought was very strange before I got down to this hotel. He told me to go on YouTube and look at the hotel, look at the JW Marriott through hotel reviews and just visualize myself being in the hotel. It sounds ridiculous, but if we even look through the word, there are a lot of ridiculous requests to people that God told them to do that they didn't understand. But they did it anyway, and then the blessing came to fruition. So what God was preparing me to do was to envision myself so that when I prayed about him delivering, me being able to stay at the hotel, to attend the conference, to even travel down there, I would already have it in my mind. Because when you believe, you have to be able to see it and give thanks like as if you already have it. It will be given to according to your faith. So when I was able to visualize myself walking into the lobby, pulling up to the JW Marriott, there were like little details, even pulling into the driveway in front of the hotel. You'll see that the hotel, the sign for it has like a waterfall cascading down the wall. I saw all of that. I saw the elevator, the foyer. I saw the lobby in the conference rooms. I saw all that online prior to going. So when I got into the hotel, even at 2 a.m. in the morning to go find Darien's room, it was just like an experience within itself. I was walking slow, like I'm really here. Like it really came to pass. And God told me even then when I was walking through the hotel, he was like, why did you doubt? Didn't you ask in faith? It seems so simple to him because he owns everything. We have to remember that. He owns that hotel. Like everything is in the palm of his hand. So he can do whatever it is you're asking him to do, but you must believe. So before I go any further, I'm gonna just give it to Danny back on just on our arrival and what happened and going into day one and how we met people and just Danny, I'm gonna send it over to you.
So I want to make sure that everybody knows that this man right here, his faith, absolutely incredible. He didn't utter a doubt the entire time. Like what he didn't have in his account didn't cause him to say anything that was contrary to what the word of the Lord had declared through Darien. And so that faith that he's talking about, like he's living it. He's living it for real, for real. Amen. And it's difficult sometimes for me, if I can be transparent, to be forthright about some of the challenges, some of the struggles, because we talk abundance. We talk like, hey, more than enough, cup running over, exceedingly abundantly above. And so to come here live and talk about, hey, I was in lack. I didn't have enough. I wasn't in lack, but I needed something that I didn't presently have. And we still moved in faith. And God came through because we spoke it, we believed it, and we weren't just sitting there praying about it. We were walking in it. We were walking in it. And I just want to salute both of you for speaking in faith, for being transparent, for being vulnerable, because the pathway of an entrepreneur, the pathway of those who walk in faith, the pathway of those who will image the all-powerful God and the creator of the universe is not always going to be the mountaintop experiences. Sometimes we will go through the valley low. And as we got there at 2 a.m, I was grateful that Brad, as we're on the way down, he had his spot. The Lord worked it out. I had my spot. The Lord worked it out. And that wasn't it though. We had more obstacles. Disruption follows intention. Whatever it is that you're seeking to do, there's gonna be some obstacles in the way. The obstacles aren't there to tell you that it's not supposed to work. It's there to show you God is working. And if you could do it all by yourself, if you could see it, if it was material in front of you, you wouldn't need faith. Because without faith, it is impossible. It is impossible to please. We must believe that he is and that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. As we walked in faith, God began to take those obstacles and turn them into stepping stones and getting us into the conference, getting our accommodations in the event. And then we began to meet people and relate and to minister to them and have them minister to us. And the Lord worked it out in such a way that I wasn't supposed to have what I didn't have in my account. I was supposed to have more than enough. But God allowed me to not have what it was that I thought I was supposed to have, so that I would trust him even more. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I didn't like it. I was upset because I did the work. I should have had what was supposed to be coming my way, but God wanted me to trust him. As we interacted with people, I remember Brad, you sent me a text message. You was like, yo, bro, a miracle happened yesterday, just like this miracle. And I'm like, yo, what? He didn't tell me what it was either. I literally had to go and find him. When he told me, I was just like, it was then that I realized why God had me drive, number one, had Brad with me in the car, number two, and caused us both to need to depend on God because he has such a miraculous thing that he was getting ready to do. I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Brad. So.
Yeah, and Darien, I know you're going to give me help with this portion because there are a couple things that I want to cover. When I got down there, I did not have a room. So I made it all the way to the conference. I made enough money to buy a ticket to get in, but I did not have a room.
And wasn't discouraged about it because he knew God was going to work it out.
That's right.
Was not discouraged, was not despondent, was not, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like, yo, God's got it.
One thing I've learned over the past couple months is the power of positive thinking and a positive mental attitude. Be enthusiastic and grateful in the midst of incredibly difficult circumstances. Your ability to do that is pretty much guaranteed based on the fact that God allows you the ability to choose how you want to think. Nobody on this planet, no situation can make you think a certain type of way. You always have the power of choice. So when I got down there, I was looking at my options as far as sleeping arrangements. And it just so happened that the brother who was splitting the room with Darien, his flight got delayed and he wasn't able to make it to the hotel that initial night. So I had a bed on the first night at 2 a.m. For that, I was extremely grateful. But after that, I didn't know where I was going to lay my head. But my mindset, just as Danny said, I was like, God already did the impossible. I was able to raise enough money to get a ticket for this event. So it was like, once that happened and I actually bought the ticket, which at first I got to a website that said that no tickets were available and it said it was signed out. It's like a last little jab of the devil trying to tell me, you're not going to make it. And then Darien sent me the proper link so I could buy the ticket and get into the event. Even as all those things are going on, my mind is like, okay, what are we doing today? Because the word says, take no thought of what tomorrow will bring. Tomorrow, the evil of today is sufficient. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Don't worry about tomorrow. I know I'm paraphrasing. When that happened, I clung to that verse because that was the scripture that came to my mind. Just focus on today and be grateful and thankful for everything that you have right here, right now. When I went into the actual event, one of the miraculous things that happened was no matter where I sat, it was like the people who were supposed to interact with me came to me and sat around me. I have podcasts scheduled for later this week with significant people. It just seems like we're all aligned, especially in thought and what we're trying to do. But one significant thing for sure was at the end of that day, day two, after the first day, I was thinking to myself, I'm either going to have to sleep on the floor in Darien's room because the brother who split the room with him is now there, or I'm asleep in the car. And I felt no type of way about that. I was like, we got to do what we got to do. Like, it was survival. It was like faith time. It was like, I'm not going to let any type of circumstance discourage me because I'm here. And just to make it to this point is miraculous enough. So with that being the case, my mind, I called Darien. I was like, hey, man, if I can crash on the floor, he was like, man, sure, you can come on in here. You know, some people might feel ashamed or, condemned about themselves for even making that type of admonition. But I immediately gave thought to past trips I've had. I've gone down to Miami on Memorial Day weekend, and the prices of hotels been so daggone high that, 3 or 4 of us split one room with like one bed, the rest of us on the floor. So I'm like, if I can do that to go party, why can't I have that same type of mindset to be to get into a room with entrepreneurs and with businessmen and businesswomen who will all have the mindset of progression, of abundance, of doing well, of serving God's kingdom. I was like, I'm definitely going to rough it off if I have to do it like this. And it just so happens that the one group of people that I met with, day 2, we all went out to eat at the Yard House that was close to the hotel. And this is where it's about to get ridiculous. I felt an urging in my spirit after we had eaten. We had been in there for like an hour, but I felt an urging in my spirit to get up, and it was time to go back to the hotel. And my mindset was simply this. I knew that the doubts, I didn't know where I was going to lay my head, and I knew that doubts were going to start coming to cloud my mind. So I said, I'm just going to go up to the pool deck, and I'm going to, have my headphones on, have some music, and I'm going to just lay out, and I'm going to just meditate and pray to the Most High and give him thanks for everything that has transpired thus far. And I just wanted to do that. So it was like an urgency. I said, I got to get up to the pool deck, So I rushed my crew after we had eaten to go back to the hotel. And after we had all departed and I went up there, I went to the pool deck and I was about to go into the pool when there was like a crowd of people like at the gate to enter. And they were like all blocking the way. So I was like, wow, these people standing right here. I got to get past them so I can go. Like my mindset is still focused. Like I got to pray. I got to meditate. Like I need this tonight before tomorrow. So I go up to the gate and I see Darien and he's talking to this gentleman who is like dripping wet. And Darien looks at me. He's like, bro, we just had a baptism. I was like, oh, what? Hold on, I want y'all to understand something. This is not inside the walls of a church. This is not inside the Tampa Bay river or anything. You know what I'm saying? We're at the pool of the hotel and Darien's telling me somebody just got baptized. When I tell y'all that the feeling of excitement just came out of it felt like I got baptized because I know that that's way more important than anything else going on. Somebody being introduced and brought into the kingdom of God. That just happened. Somebody changed their life. Whatever circumstances came about, this conference allowed an opportunity for somebody to get baptized. And this is what happened. I just started testifying. I was like, man, that's so wonderful. This is the most important thing. And as I was just talking to Darien and the guy who got baptized, which I'm about to talk about in just a second, I felt that all eyes on the pool deck were now on me. And I was only talking to them. And as I looked around, I saw everybody in the area had stopped their conversation. Everybody was looking at me and I just kept going. And it was at that time that I recognized, like I have so many times before, the Spirit is taking over. Because I didn't know what I was saying. It was like I was riding passenger seat and just watching while I was just standing there. We end up having to leave the pool deck because it was closing, but I continued to testify and something came out of me to where it was like, just talk about the trials that you've gone through to get down here. Talk about the lack of resources. Talk about the reason why you have a lack of resources. How you poured money into the business that you're currently conducting right now. How you chose to pay tithe instead of your mortgage at the beginning of the month, and now you are late on it. Talk about how other financial things just have not gone through. You've been faithful in your tithe and in giving, but the financial aspect of it just wasn't coming around just yet. God will make sure that you don't have what you think you need or what you think you should have in a moment, just so you'll rely on him.
That's it.
And so when I look back in retrospect at everything that did not go as I had planned financially, I looked at it as, no, God was like, no, I have to get the glory on this one. And I'm going to squeeze you. I'm going to let you see the promised land. And I'm going to ask you, do you think you can go in? I'm going to let you take that leap of faith to see if you'll put your faith in me. So as I began to talk about it, of course, I got emotional, man. The tears started to fall. And if Darien wasn't standing right next to me, I think I would have fallen down because it was just like, it just came. I didn't plan on talking about that. I was going out there to pray and lay out and talk to the Father. I had my head down and my eyes closed and just tears were coming out. I couldn't look at the crowd. I knew everybody was still standing there watching me, but I just couldn't look at them. Go ahead.
Let me add some context before you go on with the story. So this is going to be even more mind blowing. So first of all, I did not mention the fact that I had in my mind that Chu, who was staying with me, was going to be my backup option. And then when he calls, and when I call him, like, hey, yo, where you at? And I found that he's stuck. I'm like, okay, what's he doing? So that plan Z was removed from my mind, right? Mm-hmm. And then the fact that I had this kind of brother, like there are people who I would have roomed with that would have been upset that you were staying there. And he wasn't that kind of person. So I was cool with it, but to sell somebody else, like, oh man, I didn't split this room, whatever. He was so open about that. So that was amazing. But what I found was when you're in spaces like these, there were literally almost over 900 people were there. And so every space I went to, I prayed. I said, God, direct me to the right people. Similar to what you said, I was intentional about that. When we was coming to lunch that second day, there was a brother who was walking next to me. Now, I'm an introvert. Most people don't know that. I just want to get a lunch, maybe rest, whatever. And then God says, talk to him. This is a dude right next to me. Talk to him. I'm like, man, I don't want to talk to him. Talk to him. So I need to talk to him. We had a great conversation. And he needs what I have to offer, like, imminently. So he said, let me take you out to dinner this afternoon. I'll buy dinner for you. I'll take you out, whatever. And so fast forward, we're all together. So Brad, you started with us. We were eating in the little cafe area, whatever. And I hadn't heard from this guy yet. And so we're eating. I was like, I'm going to eat and I'll go hang out with him after the fact. I realized I didn't have his phone number. I just had his email. So I emailed him like, hey, what's going on? Do you still come through? So I'm waiting on a response from him. And meanwhile, it's probably about 7 or 8 of us. Again, Kingdom Entrepreneurs. We had a great time together eating. And then we're just talking. Now, remember, I'm supposed to be someplace else. I'm supposed to be on a town with this brother who desperately needs my services. And that got delayed. That's when a brother that we had met, this brother named Samuel, who I just randomly I was coming down the stairwell during one of the events, and he sees me and he prophesies over me. He says, man, Holy Spirit gives me this word. I've heard that before plenty of times, but then I was compelled to prophesy over him. So he prophesied over me, I prophesied over him, which was great connection. So this brother comes through while we're talking, while I'm waiting to hear back from this person who's gonna take me out to dinner. He's like, yo, we're about to have a baptism. And I'm thinking he's speaking figuratively. The baptism of the Holy Spirit, it's been that type of week already. He said, no, we about to have a baptism. So he's coming. I see Bishop Wayne Malcolm come through. Y'all don't know about him. That's a whole nother story. He's coming through. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And so this brother comes in, and this pastor is in the water, and he's praying over him, and we're prophesying. And I'm like, when I see Brad, I'm like, man, you missed it. But I realized that as Brad mentioned, with the attention shifted, I realized that the timing was perfect, right? Because the spirit was still there. Yeah. And there were so many people who had come down, including a brother on the 21st floor who heard us praying, heard us prophesying, heard us singing in this baptism. He just came down to see what was going on, right? Now, it's a very crucial part of the story, right? So he's there. And then Brad, I can tell that the spirit is on him, but I could tell it's not just him prophesying and speaking and preaching like he normally would. I can tell this oppression is on him. And instead of being in a space of complaining, in a space of woe is me, he's allowing the spirit to filter his emotions in a way that's compelling everybody around him to pray over him, to lay hands on him, to pray over him, right? And so I'm just holding on to Brad. I'm just holding on to him. And it was a manly cry, right? You know what I'm saying? But I could just tell he was oppressed. I'm holding on to him. And then we all surround him and pray over him. And it's probably, Brad, you can tell me, it was probably like a 7-8 minute prayer. Like it was, yeah. And like for those of you who are offended by speaking in tongues, you would not have liked that, right? I've heard a lot of people in our denomination, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. The spirit was there. So it was full on prophesying, speaking in tongues. I mean, there were tears being shed. There were praises being put up. And after it is over, there is this feeling of this weight was released. But here's how this brother who came downstairs. So when Brad was talking about his mortgage, I hadn't heard the name. And so after we're done praying and after all of this tension has been released, and like we can tell Brad is just like, he's renewed already, even though the situation has not changed. He's still got to go home and face this enormous debt. He has a peace that passes understanding. And so this brother who just happened to come down, hearing us sing, he looks in the distance, he sees the name of Brad's mortgage company, this building. Like, oh, isn't that right there? We're like, whoa, we'd been out there for hours, mind you. We were out there in this beautiful space. It's beautiful, beautiful weather. It's dark outside. We had not seen the name of this. And so somebody said, Brad, go speak to that mountain, right? And I want to ask you, Brad, what you said, because like we were in the distance just praying for you, right? What happened in that moment?
Man, this is bringing back the feeling even right now. When Darien said that all those brothers were praying on me, I don't know how, I think it was like 15 people. I felt hands everywhere praying over me. And I felt this release of this heaviness. I was completely released of this financial burden in my spirit. And the wonderful thing about this, man, I got to bring this up too, man. That brother Chu, who stayed in the room, because I know he's going to watch this, he had one of the most authentic and genuine Holy Spirit-filled conversations that night and in the morning. Because I slept on the floor that night. And if it weren't for you brothers testifying that night and even praying with me that morning, I didn't know how I was going to make it through the day. Because I was like, if this is what it takes, this is what it takes. But like I said, it was still heavy on me. But after this prayer, this brother named Jarvis was the main person praying over me. He's kind of a heavy set brother. And I told him, I was like, man, if you wasn't the size you were, I'd have fallen down. Because I was just leaning on him. After he just gave me a hug, he hugged me up, and he was just praying. He was like, it's all right now, bro. It's all right now. Then that guy from the 21st floor, he came down. He was like, didn't you say the name of your bank was Truist? And I was like, yeah. He pointed, like Darien said, the Truist building was lit up like over the pool that I had never seen it the entire time I was out there. And they said, speak to that mountain. So as I walked to it, I said, in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, I cast you into the sea. And I yelled it at the top of my lungs. And when that happened, Darien will attest to this. The wind that was whipping on that pool deck, it felt like a hurricane was coming. It was just warm, but it wasn't like a wind that would knock you over. It was like a swirling warm wind that persisted the entire time we were up there. Because like your wind will dissipate at some point. This thing was coming and it stayed and it was whipping and everybody could feel it. When I turned around from saying that, Pastor Nelson, or the brother who baptized people, he came over to me and he was like, God just told me to pay off your mortgage. Yeah. I lost it after that. He said, tell me the amount right now. I pulled out my phone. I had written the amount down on one of my notes. So I had the absolute authentic number. And I showed it to him. He's like, what's your Zelle number account? And he put my phone number into his phone, typed in the very amount that I owed the mortgage company and pressed send. And it hit my phone instantly. And when I tell y'all from that point on, my hands were just raised in the air and I was just walking around the deck, just praising and thanking God at the top of my lungs, no matter what I could do. And everybody came up to me afterwards and said, it is done in his name. You were not supposed to carry that alone. We share these burdens. And they were saying with such words of encouragement. And then even a little while after that, another young lady came down with her head like down to the ground. She was battling a spirit of depression. And I was like, man, let's keep this thing moving. The spirit had jumped off of John, who was the name of the brother who got baptized. I went and prayed over her. She got released from that spirit. I could feel it in her bones and in her body because when she came, she was slumped over like this. But by the time everybody finished praying over her, she was standing up straight with her head up high. And then that's when John Sober, my new big brother, who I'm definitely going to have on this podcast, John Sober, who has been through such trial and tribulation, as I would later find out, he walked over to me, freshly being baptized, and he was like, when I reserved my room at this hotel, I had ordered a room with a king bed, but they gave me a room with 2 queens. And if you would like it, you can have that other bed for the duration of your stay here. When he said that, man, it's every prayer was answered in one night.
All this at a business conference. What? This ain't no church. This
ain't no church. I go up to this brother's room. Me and this guy testify and talk about our stories till 2:00 in the morning. And I'm not going to get into his story or what we spoke about in that room, because when he comes on the podcast, then we'll talk about that. But just know this, he gave me the other bed. He gave me the ability to go to he's like, you want anything? If you ain't got enough for food, anything, you just let me know. Then on top of that, I had left my suit here at home. I had meant to take it, but I'd forgotten to pick up my suit bag. So I did not pick it up and didn't bring it down there. When I had arrived, I didn't have a belt. Just being completely transparent, the entire first day I was there, my pants were being held up by an iPhone charger wire. I'd taken a wire and wrapped it around, and nobody could see it because my shirt was long. But the entire time I kept shifting my pants and everything because I didn't have a belt. I want you to visualize the situation I'm in. Just constant things that can wear down in your mind saying, this is ridiculous. You should be embarrassed. You ain't got this. You ain't got that. But my faith was like, but my father has everything.
Yeah.
He owns everything. He owns the cattle on 1,000 Hill. If he want me to have it, then I got it. So I ain't going to complain. I borrowed Danny's car, rode to TJ Maxx, got a belt for like $9.99, and I came back. I was like, all right, we got a belt. Let's go. Like, it's the little victories. You got to focus on the small victories. Because when they happen, if you don't give thanks in that moment, then God marks that. He's like, well, he's unthankful. Give thanks and praise all the time. Janny, what we say? He said, the prophet said, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice.
Again.
He made an attempt to pause and not finish the verse just to tell people to rejoice, to be glad, to be thankful, to be grateful at all times. Because when you do this, then God's like, okay, I can give him more now. Let me see how much more he's going to be thankful for in the midst of whatever. So I'm saying all this to say we've met all these wonderful people who are about to do business with. Who cares if we do or not? The fact that we got these relationships now are people that care. I had people calling me and texting me on the way home who I just met to make sure I was safe. But now we come to a time towards the end of the conference, Danny is in the position that I was in when I came down. So I'm going to hand the mic over to him because Danny about to close this thing up with the biggest bang.
Before you even say that, in between day 1 and day 2, when you went to get that belt from TJ Maxx, what you didn't add as you're rejoicing is how you had to pay like $70 worth of parking fees. So imagine this guy has like next to nothing in his account. He's like, yo, can I borrow your car to go to TJ Maxx? He leaves the garage, has to pay like 30 something, comes back, Bad Bunny is over at the arena, so now they're jacking the price gouging.
Event parking.
$40 get back in the garage, all over a $9 belt, and he's still positive. What? He's still out there. He's still rejoicing. He's still giving praise. He still understands that, hey, you know what? God's got me. God's got me. I'm grateful for this belt. They cost me $80.
$80 belt, boy, and it holds me up too. So my pants ain't fall down, so I was happy. God just provides, and I'm gonna be quiet now. But Danny, you already know. Just start us off. Go ahead, man, with the last day.
So I'm just gonna rewind just a little bit. I'm gonna try to fast forward as quickly as I can. But on the way down, I look over at Brad because I don't have enough to even get to Tampa, Florida. And then the Lord has a new client come through for me, and that deposit hits. And I'm like, okay, bet. So I got enough to be able to take care of my my ticket because I hadn't even gotten my ticket yet. And I don't know whether or not the tickets are going to sell out because the last event is sold out prior to. And so I'm riding down to Tampa and now knowing that, okay, I can buy my ticket, but I don't really have time to buy the ticket. And so I'm like, Brad, I'm good on gas. You focus on getting what you need. And so I don't ask for anything from my man. I'm just like, this is a God thing. We began to work on the offer and his pitch in order to get what it is that he needs. And the Lord provided. He was like, dude, I got it. I got everything that I need to be able to pray. I was like, okay, word, praise God. So fast forward to the end of the conference, we're getting ready to head back to Maryland. I still have no accounts receivable and other things that hit my account wipe out what I had. I didn't have enough to get back home. I got to make a pit stop so my son can get his license. I got to take care of some tolls that I had, and I got to pay my insurance. I had so many different expenses, and I had this very little amount of money, and I'm 1,000 miles away from home. I talked to Brad, and I'm telling him, I'm in your predicament. I love how the Lord worked that miracle out for you, but now the roles are reversed.
Right.
I don't know how, I don't know where, but as we started the trip, so we put that praise music on and we were rolling down and we were just praising him. We were just praising him. I still don't know what happened, but when we get to the spot where I'm going to take my son to get his driving test because we're still residents of Florida, I went and I'm like, Brad, just pray, bro, because I don't have what I need to be able to get this done. But God, He's brought us this far. Why would He stop now?
Why?
So we're there. Next thing I know, I get a call from Brad. I can't take it because I'm on the phone trying to work things out. I call Brad back. He's like, how much do you need? I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? He's like, how much do you need? And I'm like, I no. And he's like, well, find out. And so I end up calling him back and I figured, this is what I need in order to do what I need to get. And that doesn't count the gas that I need to get back home. He was like, I got you on the gas. Wait, you had nothing when we started this trip. How do you have me on the gas? Because Jehovah Jireh, he's the provider. He's always got a ram in the thicket.
Right.
You know, if he was hungry, he wouldn't ask us. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, cup running over. I have plans to prosper you. Yeah, you might be in the land of captivity, but I still have plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And as God had promised, so he provided. Every dollar that I needed, just out the clear blue, it just fell through his manservant, Brad Tramel, and other kingdompreneurs who recognize that God doesn't prosper us in order for us to be selfish and to hoard. He blesses us so that we can be a blessing to other people. And man, when I tell you that it was only then that I could see the end from the beginning. Looking back, I could see how God led us, how God allowed my clients to not pay what they were supposed to pay weeks ago.
Yeah.
And put me in a position to trust in him, to watch Brad's miracle, and then to have a miracle of my own come through him. So that everything I need, y'all not hearing me, you need to touch 3 people. Everything that I needed was provided, and then we made it all the way back. And I ended up the trip where I spent a lot of money that I didn't have when I started the trip with more. Come on, Brad, take
Hold on, because I got to fill in your details. You helped me out by filling the details that I wouldn't remember. Let me give it to you from a third person perspective. It was Danny's birthday. First of all, it was his birthday the day we were traveling back. Second of all, his son needed to be picked up in St. Augustine, Florida, so that he could go to the DMV and take his driver's test. And this came with a slew of expenses that Danny had that he, like he said, he didn't have the money for. I was like, Danny handled gas all the way down. I'm handling it all the way back up because of the abundance you gave me. So that was not even a question. But then one of the kingdom entrepreneurs that I met down there by the name of Miriam King, who's going to be on my podcast later this week, she calls me from her consulting firm and she says, ask Danny how much he needs. Specifically. This is a woman that I met that never met Danny, but because she met me and she knows about the story of me and Danny getting down there, she's like, I'm going to make sure you and whoever you with can get home. Not only that, she texts me 3 or 4 times while we're on the road to make sure that we okay and we ain't getting in no accident, along with the other business entrepreneurs that if they all sent me texts talking about you back home yet, bro? How far are you out? Dude, she sent the money through Zelle immediately. Now, another thing Danny didn't tell you is Danny was kind enough to drop me off by the beach while he went to the DMV or to the NBA. So I'm down there and I haven't eaten anything. So I said, just drop me off by a restaurant. Danny drops me off at Publix and I haven't had a Publix sub in years, maybe since I was at Oakwood. Publix has the best subs on the planet. You can't convince me otherwise. You can keep Jersey Mike's, you can keep Subway, you can keep any sub shop that you got. Publix subs are ridiculously bigger than, so I'm eating the Publix subs, stuff in my face. I got, food all over my mouth, and I'm at the beach just singing. I'm singing underneath the pavilion at the beach, and people are walking by and say, why are you so happy? I'm whistling a song, and there was a elder woman who walked by. She's like, I know that song, and she began to whistle with me. I'm whistling a duet with a random stranger just because I got this joy and this happiness and this peace, and I'm at Danny's favorite beach. He didn't tell me that until he came back to pick me up. But I'm down there for like 2.5 hours, but I know everything's gonna be all right because Danny got his bread. He takes care of his business, then he comes back out to the beach and we're just praising God on the beach. Danny has a video of us on the beach in the aftermath of all this. I know he's gonna post it. If he sends it to me, I'm gonna post it, but you gotta see that video, man. It's one of the most happiest times I've been in my entire life. Everything is taken care of, everything is handled, and we're just ready to hop in the car and get back home. All expenses are paid. All we gotta do is just make it back home.
So during this conference, we learned a lot of principles about reframing the future, reframing the past, walking in faith, disruption, following intention, all of these things. And it's easy for us to be celebratory after the testimony has come through. And God's thankful for that, right? Rejoice always in everything, give thanks. And I felt the challenge for me was for us to see this moment during the despair. To be like, wait a minute, if we were to, that's why in the Bible we see that God always reminds his people, I'm the God who did this. I brought you out of Egypt. I broke the yoke off of your neck so you would not forget. If we were to go back to our journals, whether we have it written down, we have it mental, and see all the times that God came through, then we're like Christ in the boat saying, why were you scared? Why did you doubt? So I'm challenging myself. I'm challenging anybody who's watching this right now. When you go to a situation, it might not be as dire as what we have testified today, but it's something that you feel is impossible. And God has stripped away any excuse for anybody else to get the glory, yet the deliverance has not come yet. Then you have to remember, as God came through in the past, he wants to reprogram us. He wants to reframe our minds such that we are now looking towards a deliverance that has not happened. Speaking of those that are things that are not as though they were. That's a challenge, because again, we can always do it after the fact. We're in prayer meeting talking about how good God was, but he's like, where is your faith when you don't see the deliverance, when you don't see it? Are you going to testify to somebody when God has not come through? I don't know how it's going to come through, but I'm thanking him in advance. That's what I want to be able to see in my life, and you guys watch it too.
Danny, any final words and recap? What's the main thing people need to take away if they haven't already taken away enough?
Trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Yes.
And lean not to your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him. He shall direct thy paths.
Amen.
You won't see the miracle until you're stepping forward in faith. Don't ask God to guide your steps if you're not willing to move your feet.
Mercy.
Because that blessing, life more abundantly, it has your name all over it. But you have to step forward in faith. Without faith, it is impossible to please him. And I'm blessed to be able to share this testimony. Paul was able to acknowledge that, hey, I've had plenty, but I've also been in want. And I'm here to testify, even as a kingdom entrepreneur who has abundance on the way, that the seasons of life, they're going to come and they're going to go. But we must always walk in faith. For it is then that we will experience all the fullness of the Godhead. So be encouraged, no matter what it is that you're looking at. Oh, let me just say this one thing. Let me say this one thing. Because that beach that I took Brad to, the Lord brought me to the place where I was going through one of the lowest parts of my life. I was in the middle of going through a divorce. I was in the middle of some instability with my job. And I look out at that spot where the water seems to touch the sky. And the still small voice whispered to me, they say, hey, that spot where the water seems to touch the sky, is that the end? And it was like, no, it's not the end. What is it? It's just the end of what you can see. Whew. There's so much more. And if you choose to believe it, the best is always yet to come. Romans chapter 8, verse 28. Everybody knows that one. All things are working together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. But you got to go 10 verses up to get this other verse. It says, the suffering of this present time are not worth being compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. The best is yet to come. And wherever you have some type of difficulty, that's an opportunity for God.
Amen.
Conditions are right for the greatest of miracles now. It's been known to happen when your world comes tumbling down. So be encouraged no matter what you're looking at. Have faith to believe that God will, because he can do anything but fail.
Anything. I'm going to close it off with this, gentlemen, and coming back from the portion of Romans, just like you said in Romans chapter 8, one thing the Most High guided me to and to keep repeating in order to assure myself that he was aware of everything. He says, I foreknew you, and because I foreknew you, I predetermined you. I predetermined you to be here at a certain time. When that time came, I called you. Called was the next word he told me to focus on. Then after I called you, I justified you, meaning I justified you being alive, even with all the troubles and the things about yourself that you want me to fix and everything that the devil may throw against it you. I justified you being here. And then I glorified you for the fact that I'm going to get my glory through you. And all of that is past tense. So I definitely want to let you guys know that it's been a blessing. There's more to come. And definitely look out for the contact information of everybody who's been on this podcast. I truly salute and thank these brothers for sharing with me in this experience. This is the BTonez podcast. We'll see you on the next go round, and be blessed till then. All praises.